Welcome to another episode of Media Talks TV. I'm your host, Tony J. If you're new here, hit the like, click, share, and hit the bell for more notifications. This video, I know it's coming late. This is kind of like the last week of Black History Month. But you know, to me, Black history is every day. It's every year. Um February is one of the shortest months of the year, and then everything else goes on downhill, being long months. I never realized how infinitely short Black History Month is, despite all the contributions that we've made to this country. I guess you can say February seems like it comes and goes. It's like, January's there and then February just kind of like just like that gone. But Black History Month, in my previous video we covered Good Times, 50th anniversary. I wanted to delve into the topic of BET because I never I never really explored that. We taught I have the video talking about and discussing the 20th anniversary of TV One. And you can go ahead and check that out. But when I was doing the video for TV, the 20th anniversary of TV One, I didn't realize that BET had a 45th anniversary too in January as well. So it's odd that both TV One and BET, two big black media conglomerates, were founded in January, but BET now has 45 years onto it, and either 44 or 45. I lost count. So I know it was somewhere in 1980. But, BET has been around for so many years that for me personally, I've forgotten that it was an actual cable channel now because it's just like BET Plus is a streaming service now. So I just kind of realized how much history is being lost with BET because I'll go online and I've been going through the archives looking for old episodes of Video Soul. Sometimes people will upload old uh episodes of Video Soul with Donnie Simpson, and I managed to get an episode from 1986 that scrolled up through my timeline. And something told me, okay, let me go ahead and rip this because I have real players, so I could rip anything I want off of YouTube and burn it to disk. Because I know, just like with YouTube, they take things off abruptly, and sometimes when you upload certain things that have a copyright infringement on it, sometimes those videos get taken down. So whenever I find old episodes of Video Soul or Video LP or Mad Sports, I would go on ahead and rip those videos off. I'm still looking for Teen Summon. I think there are a couple of episodes of Teen Summon will be on YouTube. I just haven't gotten around to actually burning them to disc. But what I realized looking at all those videos, so I got commercials from 1990, some from 1988, and I just realized something about like BET is like all this history is being lost, and it seems like BET does not want to keep any record or archive of all of their old footage. It's like you had to be there in order to actually witness what BET was before it became the behemoth that it is today. And I started noticing something about BET is that it's just a shadow or a shell of its former self. And the whole message of this video when I want to talk about BET is that sometimes we as black people we give up all of our power and our leverage as a culture. And I felt like BET had so much leverage back then before it was sold to Viacom. It had so much leverage back then that if Bob Johnson had kept BET, he could have sold it for even more, or he could have generated control. And I realized and I learned from that it's not always about the money. It's really about the power. And some of us as African Americans, we have this big mistaken ideal about life that it's all about the money, but it's really about the power. And sometimes when we think about money and we think about the class differences that we hold in this country, we don't realize that sometimes we often sell our power away. We give our power away too willingly in exchange for money. And what I realize is money is just a material thing. It comes and it goes. You have it and then you lose it. Money is not made to be hoarded. Money is not made to be kept, stored away. Money is meant to be spent. The only thing is, when you spend money, you got to be able to make more money. It's like a spigot of water. Would I be satisfied with a bucket of water, or would I be satisfied with a well in which to get more water from? And sometimes I think BET was this fountain that when we gave it all away, we lost our ability to have control and leverage over the community in which it served. Now, I understand people want to be billionaires, millionaires, and everything like that, but I felt like Bob Johnson did such a disservice to himself because he only saw the money that Viacom was giving him. And I understand, people want to, get out of their situation. They don't want to be making the same money. And some people don't even realize they give up their leverage when they do that. It's always important to keep your leverage whenever you have it, because once you have the leverage, then you could make the decisions, you could call all the shots. You could be a power broker. And I started learning about what it means to have power when I started reading a lot of books. Um, there was this one book, I'm still reading it, but I haven't finished it, by Connie Burbeck, called Master of the Game. And it's a real interesting book, Master of the Game. I'll try to put a hyperlink down at the bottom of this video so that give you a link to Amazon to actually get that book. Um, Master of the Game was about this guy. His name was Steve Ross. And Steve Ross, he was a funeral director. He was a Paul he ran a funeral business. And this how I heard the story, don't quote me on this. How I heard Steve Ross come to power was that he took the money from what he made from the funeral business, and he took that money and he brought parking lots with that money. So he took the money that he was making from the funeral business that he ran, and then took the money, brought his first parking lot, and actually charged people to park on his parking lot. And then he took that money and then he started the business Warner Communications. I think that's how it went. He took the money from the funeral business, invested it in parking lots. He was making all this money from the parking lots. He took that money and brought Warner Communications in the early 60s. Warner Communications was making so much money. Then he turned around and he sold the company to Time Inc., which was the magazine magnet. Time Inc., Time Magazine, and then that's how Time Warner. He automatically became the CEO of Time Warner. And Steve Ross ran the company for 20 years up until his death. And then when Time Warner became the conglomerate that it became, um, man by the name of Steve Case. Steve Case went on to run Time Warner. And then Time Warner brought CNN. And then after he brought CNN, they brought Cartoon Network. Then after they brought Cartoon Network and CNN, they turned around and brought AOL in year 2000. And then it became Time Warner AOL. You see where this is going? This power. This man took his money, multiplied it, reinvested it, took it, and then made one of the largest media conglomerates of the century, one of the biggest mergers of the time. And I was only 10 when I heard about AOL and Time Warner becoming a mega media conglomerate. It's one of the largest media conglomerates of our time, of the 21st century. And then, in spite of it all, somebody leveraged their business and lost their power. And that was Ted Turner. When Ted Turner sold CNN to Time Warner, he lost all his managerial power over it. Then he went, and then what happened was he went into to wrestling with the whole Monday Night Nitro, if you don't remember it. But he lost all of his staying power, all of his shareholders' rights after he sold all his shares to from CNN to Time Warner. So all of his equity, shareholders' equity, went over to Time Warner. And then when Time Warner fell, AOL fell with it. Then they broke off. And it was interesting. Like, you don't hear a lot of these stories in the media like that. Then there's Sumner Redstone. And I've read about Sumner Redstone, and he's somebody that I kind of look at as this guy was well into his 90s when he died. I didn't know nothing about Sumner Redstone until he died. But Sumner Redstone was the man behind Viacom. And he had a lot of power. And I read a book on Sumner Redstone, and the way I understood it very vividly, he was his father ran a movie theater, a drive-in movie theater. He took the drive-in movie theater business and turned it into an amusement park. And once he made money off the amusement park business, he took the money he made from the amusement park business and he brought Paramount Pictures. And then once he brought Paramount Pictures, he brought CBS. And then it became Viacom. And Viacom, CBS, there's always been this thing about Viacom. And this is where the story kind of intersects, right? Viacom was its own separate company. Paramount was its own separate company, but they were all housed under Viacom. And then there's the print business with Simon and Schuster. So all three of those companies were interconnected with Viacom. I didn't know this until I started reading about this. And then if you really want to know the story of a company, look at the stocks. That's where the real gold is. The books. And this is where I started to pick up stuff about how investing works. When you look at the company's shares and where they're invested in their books, and then most of the money that they generate out of these companies is invested in real estate, commercial real estate. That's why Viacom had the whole billboard industry. It's all tied up in there. And then radio, which was WCBS, which was in New York. So they had all these companies interconnected and they were generating a profit. And then you had a company like, here comes BET, black man from Washington, D.C., named Robert Johnson, works with the FCC, ends up becoming, you know, a powerful person in Washington, D.C., he decides he wants to start a television network called Black Entertainment Television. How does he secure the rights? How does he go about it? Marion Barry ends up giving him property in Northwest DC, and that's where BET becomes its new home, right? First thing they do is they just start running reruns and syndicated old black shows, you know, like the Jeffersons, like, Cosby Show, all the old syndicated broadcasts, and then all the Oscar Micheaux, like in the early 80s, it was just syndicated program, all the Oscar Micheaux movies and stuff like that. And then by the mid 80s, they needed a format for music videos. So then they had Video Soul with Donnie Simpson. And then they start just focusing on music videos. Then in the late 80s, they get into Rap City, and then they build this plethora focused on music videos, Video LP, you know, Rap City, all these things. And then they have a format. So then they know that we can focus on black artists. They come to Washington, D.C., they get interviewed, they get exposure. So then you have your business model already in place. Now, Sumner Redstone comes in and says, I want to add BET right when it's at the precipice of a lot of buying power. I want to buy BET for $1 billion and have it be a part of the Viacom family. We want diverse program. Now they talk about diversity, diverse programming. And this is where we go wrong. This whole thing about diversity, diverse programming. We want minority owned networks and we want to focus on an urban audience, because now they see, okay, hip hop has buying power. Hip hop has these audiences. BET has a large lion's share of the market. We could buy that and then close in on it, and then we buy the market share. And this is something that, there was another video online where Roland Martin was really breaking that down and talking about that. But, before I do the second part of this video, I just wanted to really go over the metrics of how we end up giving away our leverage. And one of the things is Bob Johnson had leverage. He could have came in as a partner. He could have said, well, if I'm going to sell BET to you, then I want to be a part of the board. I want to be made partner, and I want to have shared control of the network, which means I still have control over programming. And that would have been a better move than selling the BET as a network outright, because then he would have had leverage to control what type of programming comes in and goes out. He would have had control of the market then. But we sell ourselves short when we ask for a large bundle of money instead of leverage being shared control of a company that I built. If it's one thing I've learned, and this is one of the interesting things I've learned from the likes of somebody like Master P, is that you have to be willing to walk away if you know you're worth more. And that's one of the things that we get wrong as Black folks. We Our generation, and I'm speaking directly for Generation X. Well, not Generation X, but also the millennials. I We've had older generations tell us we need to take what we can get in order to survive. Take what you can get and move along. And that is one of the most poisonous mentalities that I've seen black folks actually inhibit or actually have when it comes to securing the respect and the dignity of other people. You don't buy your respect. You get it when you have the leverage and the power and the money, and you can meet them at the table and say, look, this is how it's going to go down. If you want to be a part of this, then I'm going to be able, I need to call the shots. It's not going to be, I'm giving all my leverage away or I'm selling my company so that you can have control or share control over what I've built. And the one thing we should never ever do is sell away our power, give away our birthright. If you secure something that generates wealth, you got to keep it. You got to keep it within the family. But some of us are not willing to do what is right because of how we view the world that we live in. With our parents, because they grew up in the 60s and the 70s, they say, well, take what you can get and survive off of that. Do what you got to do so you could do what you have to do. And that mentality is one of the most dangerous mentalities because it doesn't lead black folks anywhere. None of it has actually really paid off because every time we get to a place where we have so much power, what do we do with it? We give it away because everybody saw something, they didn't license the idea, or they saw the money and they said, well, I gave it away because I wanted this bag of money. When I could have taken what I had and licensed it and actually made residual profit off of what I created. And that's one of the most damaging things about black folks. And that's why a lot of our parents don't have anything. It's because we give it all away soon as somebody, and I don't care what color you are, as soon as somebody swoops in and gives us something flashy in exchange for that power, because it's not true power when you have a big house. It's not true power when you have a car. It's something that's temporary. Makes you feel good in the moment, but then do you really have true power? And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned about this whole month of Black History is that we should never ever give away our power as a collective. Because if we give away our leverage, then it's like selling away our power. Once we gave away BET, that was it. We had no control over the channel. Nobody can invest in it. I mean, what if Bob Johnson actually kept BET? We would have made it what it was, and then it would have been the first media company to be an IPO. I mean, imagine it. What if BET was an IPO? and then everybody black could put shares in the buy shares of BET. I mean, it would make sense. You're the ones that are consuming it. Why would you not want to invest in something you already consume? Just like with Nike. Like you have black folks that buy so many Nike shoes, have all these Nikes on their shelf, but they don't own the stock. You're a consumer, but you're not an investor. So how can you buy something you don't own shares in? If I invested in McDonald's, guess what I'm eating? I'm eating McDonald's. Because at least when I spend money, at least when I spend my money, I know my money is going back into the company and my money is going back into my pocket because I got shares in the company. Don't buy where you're not willing to invest. It's a simple principle. But we as black folks, we give away our power, our buying power, and our leverage mainly because we spend large amounts of money on cars that we don't own outright. If you still got a car payment, guess what? You don't own the car outright. You just own the debt. You don't own the house until you finish making payments to the bank. You borrow money against the property. If you don't pay the money that is borrowed against the property, you put your own down payment to bring down the principal interest of the mortgage. The more money that you put and invest as a down payment, you still got to keep making payments on it. But it's not an investment until you finish paying it off. Then you got to rent it out to make your income, to make the money that you spent and invested to come back into your pockets. That's the only way it will work. And that's the same thing I felt as though maybe Roland Martin was saying. I don't agree all the time with Roland Martin on certain issues, but in this thing, I do agree with him on it. Because whenever we have all these platforms, all these social media companies that we're giving our money to and we monetize on that platform, but we don't get a share of the ad revenue. We barely ever get a share of the ad revenue. And that's what's most problematic about social media is that you have a lot of black folks, they created all these dance moves and all these memes or memes, and you can't license it. You can't monetize it. It's the same thing when people are talking about Tubi. You can't monetize on or reap the benefits from something that you don't outright own. And that's where the problem starts. It's important to build your own platform. It's okay to depend on it for a little bit, but at some point you gotta get your own platform. Just like when we had all those black shows on Fox. And I believe Roland Martin talked about this one time in one of his videos. I'm not cut and splice that up, and we're going to talk about it in the second video. But he said that Fox built their brand off of black audiences and black consumers. That is partially true, but to be honest, they didn't need black shows because Fox already had Married with Children, Arsenio Hall, The Tracy Ullman Show, Simpsons. They didn't need In Living Color. They didn't need Rock. They didn't need The Sinbad Show. They didn't need South Central or New York Undercover or Living Single. They didn't need those shows to be profitable. So it didn't mean much when they canceled all those shows. Same thing happened with UPN and WB when they had Sister, Parenthood, Moesha, The Parkers, all those black shows. Homeboys in Outer Space, the Desmond Pfeiffer. They didn't, UPN did not need, well, UPN had those black shows, but once UPN merged with WB, they was like, okay, we don't need you no more. So every time we hop on somebody else's platform, you got to know who's at the head of that table. If it ain't a black man at the head, a black person at the head of that table, they got control of the shares, then it's not your platform. We spend so much money being on YouTube, Instagram, all these other things, but I have yet to even see anybody black create a social media platform. Hasn't happened yet. I mean, it's one person that has happened, but it hasn't happened. It hasn't happened. And I was like, you got all these conglomerate social media companies and they buy up all the ad space. They make most of the majority of their money from ad revenue. But those who are on the platform, especially blacks or African Americans, they don't reap a benefit. They only partially making money from that platform. And then whenever their stuff gets demonetized, they don't make any money from it. And that's one of the biggest problems. We sell out, we get rid of our leverage every time we do that. It takes money to build large platforms, especially social media platforms and especially websites. But the one thing I learned when I was going to college that I'll never forget, one of my business teachers, my business professors, he told me, get yourself a domain name and make sure you register the domain name. Get yourself a business, make sure you register your business. And then whatever you create within that business or LLC, you can actually use your LLC to write off taxes. I didn't know how powerful having an LLC was till after the pandemic. And you seen all these people got LLCs and writing and putting their car under an LLC, putting their house under an LLC. And I didn't even realize how powerful that was. What it means to have a corporate structure. What is the difference between a C corp and an S corp? How you can create a company and actually make yourself the vice president, the president, or the CEO. I mean, that's how most corporations start out. They start out as charters. And then I just didn't realize it until I got into my mid 20s. and then started reading stuff on LLCs and how you could actually put multiple business names under an LLC. And that's mostly my plan right now is to create businesses and actually put them under LLCs, create a S corp, have it structured to where I can generate income from multiple businesses and don't have to pay any taxes, just as long as I'm not using that money for illicit purposes, that I reinvest that money back into the business. And that's the thing that people don't understand. You make money, you can make money tax free off of an LLC, and then actually have reinvest that money back into the business or use it for discretionary purposes. Long as it's not, long as it's a limited liability corporation, as long as it's not a sole proprietorship. If it's a sole proprietorship, then you're gonna be in trouble. You're gonna be on the hook for a lot of taxes. That's why I tell people like dude, don't call anything that I create business wise a sole proprietorship. Because if I create a sole proprietorship, then I'm on the hook for taxes. Something go wrong in the company, I'm on the hook for taxes. That's one of the things that I learned. Really, if you think about it, I learned that from Donald Trump. And I know people out there hate Donald Trump's guts, but to be honest, that man is a fucking genius. To be honest, I mean, politics aside, the son of a bitch knows the tax codes. He knows how to get around and meander the tax codes. And that's what's so I'm like, I be sitting there, everybody be talking about how much they hate Trump. But then I'm like, damn, how the fuck did he do that? And I'm like, limited liability corporation, limited liability corporation, LLC. And black folks can use that to their benefit. This is what I was talking about when you have true power and how to use it and how to leverage it while everybody else is out and looking at what the power structure is doing. They're not taking advantage of what the power structure can actually do for them. And you could actually meander your way into some money. And I didn't realize that. The more I read, the more I find out, and the more I get more curious, then I could put a plan in place. An abundance mindset, having a vision of something bigger. Most of us don't have that because we got old folks around us, grandmamas and granddaddies and great aunts and shit, sitting on a porch talking about you need to take what you can get and survive and take care of your family. But how the hell you gonna take care of your family off of a shitty 9 to 5 job? And that's one of the biggest problems. We're not generating any wealth. We give away our leverage. We give away our power for the temporary gains. And that's exactly what Bob Johnson did. He gave away BET for a temporary gain because he wanted to be the first black billionaire. He wanted to be John Malone. And for what? What does it gain him? Nobody wants to watch BET no more. Everybody talks about how old BET has become, what BET used to be. Why black folks, every time I hear about older black folks who grew up on BET, they always say, well, I miss Teen Summit. I miss Video LP. Why? Because The company that he created, he sold his birthright. He sold the legacy for fucking money. And that's one of the biggest problems we as black folks have. We sell out our power and our leverage for the temporary gains in life. And you have to honestly sit back and make a decision. Do I want to do this for the power, or do I just want to do this simply for the money? And I say to myself, I don't want money. I want power. Because with power, you can get all the money that you want. White people understand that shit. That's why Donald Trump is who he is. And I know people are going to excoriate me for bringing Donald Trump into this conversation, but just separate the politics for a minute to see what type of businessman he really is. I mean, that's one of the things why certain people make it and why certain people don't make it. Because black folks are too busy looking for somebody up in the air to give them something instead of looking to around them to see what is it that I can use to gain the upper level and leverage. Churches got us messed up about understanding how to get to one part of life to the next. And if you're living in the current life that you have right now, none of that shit matters because you waiting on somebody else to give it to you. It's not going to happen. You have to go out there, you have to take it. And that's one of the things that we don't learn. You gotta get out there, you gotta go out there and you gotta take it. Respect isn't given, it's earned. And you earn it through power because everybody respects a man of power. Kings didn't get to be powerful kings because they were humble. Kings got to be kings because they saw somebody at the top and cut their head off and sat on the throne. You don't become powerful waiting for something to come to you. Just like we do every time. That's why all the politicians go to churches and shit. Because they know we stupid. Because they know we not going to do nothing. They know we ain't got no power. They know that when they come through, all they got to do is say some words and they ain't got to back up or back it up with some promises. And that's one of the problems that black folks have. They let outsiders come in and dictate how they should live their lives. And then while they reap the benefits off of you, you get nothing but the scraps every election year. But I'm glad to know that that's changing because the younger people are looking at that and saying, you know what? I'm tired of people lying to me. I'm tired of being nice. I'm tired of playing coy. If I want something, I got to go out there and I got to snatch it for myself. You don't go through life being nice to everybody. Sometimes you got to be ruthless. Sometimes you got to be cutthroat. That's the way the game is played. That's the world that we live in. Hustle or you get hustled. And that's one of the primary things that I wanted to talk about in this video. Stop giving away your power. Stop giving away your fucking leverage. Because when you have leverage, you get to call the shots.